Section 36 of English Synonyms and Antonyms. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Mario Pineda. English Synonyms and Antonyms by James Champlin Fernald. Immediately to influence. Immediately. Synonyms: at once, directly, forthwith, instanter, instantly, now, presently, right away, right off, straight away, this instant, without delay. The strong and general human tendency to procrastination is shown in the progressive weakening of the various words in this group. Immediately primarily signifies without the intervention of anything as a medium, hence without the intervention of any, even the briefest, interval or lapse of time. By and by, which was once a synonym, has become an antonym of immediately, meaning at some perhaps remote future time. Directly, which once meant with no intervening time, now means after some little while. Presently no longer means in this very present, but before very long. Even immediately is sliding from its instantaneousness, so that we are fain to substitute at once, instantly, etc., when we would make promptness emphatic. Right away and right off are vigorous conversational expressions in the United States. Antonyms: after a while, by and by, hereafter, in the future, sometime. Immerse. Synonyms: bury, dip, douse, duck, immerse, plunge, sink, submerge. Dip is Saxon, while immerse is Latin for the same initial act. Dip is accordingly the more popular and commonplace, immerse the more elegant and dignified expression in many cases. To speak of baptism by immersion as dipping now seems rude, though entirely proper and usual in early English. Baptists now universally use the word immerse. To dip and to immerse alike signify to bury or submerge some object in a liquid, but dip implies that the object dipped is at once removed from the liquid, while immerse is wholly silent as to the removal. Immerse also suggests more absolute completeness of the action. One might dip his sleeve or dip a sponge in a liquid, if he but touches the edge. If he immerses it, he completely sinks it under and covers it with the liquid. Submerge implies that the object cannot readily be removed, if at all, as a submerged wreck. To plunge is to immerse suddenly and violently, for which douse and duck are colloquial terms. Dip is used also, unlike the other words, to denote the putting of a hollow vessel into a liquid in order to remove a portion of it. In this sense, we say dip up, dip out. Compare synonyms for bury. Preposition: the object is immersed in water. Imminent. Synonyms: impending, threatening. Imminent, from the Latin with the sense of projecting over, signifies liable to happen at once, as some calamity, dangerous, and close at hand. Impending, also from the Latin with the sense of hanging over, is closely akin to imminent, but somewhat less emphatic. Imminent is more immediate, impending more remote, threatening more contingent. An impending evil is almost sure to happen at some uncertain time, perhaps very near. An imminent peril is one liable to befall very speedily. A threatening peril may be near or remote, but always with the hope that it might be averted. Antonyms: chimerical, contingent, doubtful, improbable, problematic, unexpected, unlikely. Impediment. Synonyms: bar, barrier, clog, difficulty, encumbrance, hindrance, obstacle, obstruction. Difficulty makes an undertaking otherwise than easy. That which rests upon one as a burden is an encumbrance. An impediment is primarily something that checks the foot or in any way makes advance slow or difficult. An obstacle is something that stands across the way. An obstruction something that is built or placed across the way. An obstruction is always an obstacle, but an obstacle may not always be properly termed an obstruction. Boxes and bales placed on the sidewalk are obstructions to travel. An ice floe is an obstacle to navigation and may become an obstruction if it closes an inlet or channel. A hindrance, kindred with hind, behind, is anything that makes one come behind or short of his purpose. An impediment may be either what one finds in his way or what he carries with him. Impedimenta was the Latin name for the baggage of a soldier or of an army. The tendency is to view an impediment as something constant or at least for a time continuous, as an impediment in one's speech. A difficulty or a hindrance may be either within one or without. A speaker might find difficulty in expressing himself, or difficulty in holding the attention of restless children. An encumbrance is always what one carries with him. An obstacle or an obstruction is always without. To a marching soldier, the steepness of a mountain path is a difficulty. Loose stones are impediments. A fence is an obstruction. A cliff or a boulder across the way is an obstacle. A knapsack is an encumbrance. Antonyms: advantage, aid, assistance, benefit, help, relief, succor. Impudence. Synonyms: assurance, boldness, effrontery, forwardness, impertinence, incivility, insolence, intrusiveness, officiousness, pertness, presumption, rudeness, sauciness. Impertinence primarily denotes what does not pertain or belong to the occasion or the person, and hence comes to signify interference by word or act not consistent with the age, position, or relation of the person interfered with or of the one who interferes, especially forward, presumptuous, or meddlesome speech. Impudence is shameless impertinence. What would be arrogance in a superior becomes impertinence or imprudence in an inferior. Impertinence has less of intent and determination than impudence. We speak of thoughtless impertinence, shameless impudence. Insolence is literally that which is against custom, that is, a violation of customary respect or courtesy. Officiousness is thrusting upon others an asked and undesired service, and is often as well meant as it is annoying. Rudeness is the behavior that might be expected from a thoroughly uncultured person, and might be either deliberate and insulting, or unintentional and even unconscious. Compare arrogance, assurance, effrontery, pertness. Antonyms: bashfulness, coyness, diffidence, humility, lowliness, meekness, modesty, submissiveness. Prepositions: the impudence of or impudence from a subordinate to a superior. Incongruous. Synonyms: absurd, conflicting, contradictory, contrary, discordant, discrepant, inapposite, inappropriate, incommensurable, incompatible, inconsistent, irreconcilable, mismatched, mismated, repugnant, unsuitable. Two or more things that do not fit well together or are not adapted to each other are said to be incongruous. A thing is said to be incongruous that is not adapted to the time, place, or occasion. The term is also applied to a thing made up of ill-assorted parts or inharmonious elements. Discordant is applied to all things that jar in association, like musical notes that are not in accord. Inharmonious has the same original sense, but is a milder term. Incompatible primarily signifies unable to sympathize or feel alike. Inconsistent means unable to stand together. Things are incompatible which cannot exist together in harmonious relations, and whose action when associated tends to ultimate extinction of one by the other. Inconsistent applies to things that cannot be made to agree in thought with each other, or with some standard of truth or right. Slavery and freedom are inconsistent with each other in theory, and incompatible in fact. Incongruous applies to relations unsuitable to purpose or use. Two colors are incongruous which cannot be agreeably associated. Either might be unsuitable for a person, a room, or an occasion. Incommensurable is a mathematical term, applying to two or more quantities that have no common measure or aliquot part. Antonyms: accordant, agreeing, compatible, consistent, harmonious, suitable. Preposition: the illustrations were incongruous with the term. Induction. Synonyms: deduction, inference. Deduction is a reasoning from the general to the particular. Induction is reasoning from the particular to the general. Deduction proceeds from a general principle through an admitted instance to a conclusion. Induction, on the other hand, proceeds from a number of collated instances through some attribute common to them all, to a general principle. The proof of an induction is by using its conclusion as the premise of a new deduction. Thus, what is ordinarily known as scientific induction is a constant interchange of induction and deduction. In deduction, if the general rule is true and the special case falls under the rule, the conclusion is certain. Induction can ordinarily give no more than a probable conclusion, because we can never be sure that we have collated all instances. An induction is of the nature of an inference, but while an inference might be partial and hasty, an induction is careful and aims to be complete. Compare demonstration, hypothesis. Industrious. Synonyms: active, assiduous, busy, diligent, employed, engaged, occupied, sedulous. Industrious signifies zealously or habitually applying oneself to any work or business. Busy applies to an activity which might be temporary, industrious to a habit of life. We say a man is busy just now, that is, occupied at the moment with something that takes his full attention. It would be ridiculous or satirical to say he is industrious just now, but busy can be used in the sense of industrious, as when we say he is a busy man. Diligent indicates also a disposition, which is ordinarily habitual and suggests more of hardiness and volition than industrious. We say one is a diligent rather than an industrious reader of the Bible. In the use of the nouns, we speak of plodding industry, but not of plodding diligence. Compare active, industry. Antonyms: see synonyms for idle. Industry. Synonyms: application, assiduity, attention, constancy, diligence, effort, exertion, intentness, labor, pains, patience, perseverance, persistence, sedulousness. Industry is the quality, action, or habit of earnest, steady, and continued attention or devotion to any useful or productive work or task, manual or mental. Assiduity, Latin ad, to, and sidio, sit, as the etymology suggests, sits down to a task until it is done. Diligence, Latin dilego, love, choose, invests more effort and exertion, with love of the work or deep interest in its accomplishment. Application, Latin ad, to, and plico, fold, bends to its work and concentrates all one's powers upon it with utmost intensity. Hence, application can hardly be as unremitting as assiduity. Constancy is a steady devotion of heart and principle. Patience works on in spite of annoyances. Perseverance overcomes hindrances and difficulties. Persistence strives relentlessly against opposition. Persistence has very frequently an unfavorable meaning, implying that one persists in spite of considerations that should induce him to desist. Industry is diligence applied to some avocation, business, or profession. Labor and pains refer to the exertions of the worker and the tax upon him, while assiduity, perseverance, etc., refer to his continuance in the work. Antonyms: changeableness, fickleness, idleness, inattention, inconstancy, indolence, neglect, negligence, remissness, sloth. Infinite. Synonyms: absolute, boundless, countless, eternal, illimitable, immeasurable, innumerable, interminable, limitless, measureless, numberless, unbounded, unconditional, unfathomable, unlimited, unmeasured. Infinite, Latin in, not, and finis, limit, signifies without bounds or limits in any way, and might be applied to space, time, quantity, or number. Countless, innumerable, and numberless, which should be the same as infinite, are in common usage vaguely employed to denote what it is difficult or practically impossible to count or number, though perhaps falling far short to infinite. As countless leaves, the countless sands of the seashore, numberless battles, innumerable delays, so too boundless, illimitable, limitless, measureless, and unlimited are loosely used in reference to what has no apparent or readily determinable limits in space or time. As we speak of the boundless ocean, infinite space is without bounds not only in fact but in thought. Infinite time is truly eternal. Compare synonyms for eternal. Antonyms: bounded, brief, circumscribed, evanescent, finite, limited, little, measurable, moderate, narrow, restricted, shallow, short, small, transient, transitory. Influence. Synonyms: actuate, compel, dispose, draw, drive, excite, impel, incite, incline, induce, instigate, lead, move, persuade, prompt, steer, sway, urge. To influence, Latin in or into, and fluo, flow, is to affect, modify, or act upon by physical, mental, or moral power, especially in some gentle, subtle, and gradual way, as vegetation is influenced by light. Everyone is influenced to some extent by public opinion. Influence is chiefly used of power acting from without, though it may be used of motives regarded as forces acting upon the will. Actuate refers solely to mental or moral power impelling one from within. One may influence but cannot directly actuate another, but one may be actuated to cruelty by hatred which another's misrepresentation has aroused. Prompt and steer are words of mere suggestion towards some course of action. Dispose, draw, incline, influence, and lead refer to the use of mild means to awaken in another a purpose or disposition to act. To excite is to arouse one from lethargy or indifference to action. Incite and instigate to spur or goad one to action. Differ in the fact that incite might be to good, while instigate is always to evil. Compare abet. To urge and impel signify to produce a strong excitation towards some act. We are urged from without, impelled from within. Drive and compel imply irresistible influence to accomplishing its object. One may be driven either by his own passions or by external force or urgency. One is compelled only by some external power, as the owner was compelled by his misfortunes to sell his estate. Compare compel, drive. Antonyms: deter, discourage, dissuade, hinder, impede, inhibit, prevent, restrain, retard. Prepositions: actuated to crime by revenge. End of section 36. of English Synonyms and Antonyms. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Mario Pineda. English Synonyms and Antonyms by James Champlin Fernald. Inherent to involve. Inherent. Synonyms: congenital, essential, immanent, inborn, inbred, indispensable, indwelling, infixed, ingrained, inhering, innate, inseparable, internal, intrinsic, inwrought, native, natural, subjective. Inherent signifies permanently united as an element or original quality, naturally existent or incorporated in something so as to have become an integral part. Immanent is a philosophic word to denote that which dwells in or pervades any substance or spirit without necessarily being a part of it, and without reference to any working out. Compare subjective. That which is inherent is an inseparable part of that in which it inheres, and is usually thought of with reference to some outworking or effect, as an inherent difficulty. God is said to be immanent nor inherent in the universe. Frequently, intrinsic and inherent can be interchanged, but inherent applies to qualities while intrinsic applies to essence, so that to speak of intrinsic excellence conveys higher praise than if we say inherent excellence. Inherent and intrinsic may be said of persons or things. Congenital, inborn, inbred, innate, applying to living beings. Congenital is frequent in medical and legal use with a special application to defects, as congenital idiocy. Innate and inborns are almost identical, but innate is preferred in philosophic use, as when we speak of innate ideas. That which is inborn, congenital, or innate may be original with the individual, but that which is inbred is inherited. Ingrained signifies dyed in the grain, and denotes that which is deeply wrought into substance or character. Antonyms: accidental, casual, external, extrinsic, fortuitous, incidental, outward, subsidiary, superadded, superficial, superfluous, superimposed, supplemental, transient, unconnected. Injury. Synonyms: blemish, damage, detriment, disadvantage, evil, harm, hurt, impairment, injustice, loss, mischief, outrage, prejudice, wrong. Injury, Latin in, not, and just, juris, right, law, signifies primarily something done contrary to law or right. Hence, something contrary to some standard of right or good. Whatever reduces the value, utility, beauty, or desirableness of anything is an injury to that thing. Of persons, whatever is so done as to operate adversely to one in his person, rights, property, or reputation is an injury. The word is especially used of whatever mars the integrity of the body or causes pain, as when rescued from the wreck his injuries were found to be very slight. Injury is the general term including all the rest. Damage, Latin damnum, loss, is that which occasions loss to the possessor. Hence, any impairment of value, often with the suggestion of fault on the part of one causing it. Damage reduces value, utility, or beauty. Detriment, Latin deterere, to rob or wear away, is similar in meaning, but far milder. Detriment may affect value only. Damage always affects real worth or utility. As a rule, the slightest use of an article by a purchaser operates to its detriment if again offered for sale, though the article might have received not the slightest damage. Damage is partial. Loss is properly absolute as far as it is predicated at all. The loss of a ship implies that it is gone beyond recovery. The loss of the rudder is a damage to the ship, but since the loss of a part still leaves a part, we may speak of a partial or a total loss. Evil commonly suggests suffering or sin, or both, as the evils of poverty, the social evil. Harm is closely synonymous with injury. It may apply to body, mind, or state, but always affects real worth, while injury might concern only estimated value. A hurt is an injury that causes pain, physical or mental. A slight hurt may be no real harm. Mischief is disarrangement, trouble, or harm usually caused by some voluntary agent, with or without injurious intent. A child's toothless sport might do great mischief. Wrong is harm done with evil intent. An outrage combines insult and injury. Compare synonyms for blemish, criminal, injustice. Antonyms: advantage, amelioration, benefit, blessing, boon, help, improvement, remedy, service, utility. Prepositions: the injury of the cause, an injury to the structure, injury by fire, by and from collision, interference, etc. Injustice. Synonyms: grievance, iniquity, injury, unfairness, unrighteousness, wrong. Injustice is a violation or denial of justice, an act or omission that is contrary to equity or justice, as the injustice of unequal taxes. In legal usage, a wrong involves injury to a person, property, or reputation as the result of evil intent. Injustice applies to civil damage or loss, not necessarily involving injury to person or property, as by misrepresentation of goods which does not amount to a legal warranty. In popular usage, injustice may involve no direct injury to person, property, interest, or character, and no harmful intent, while wrong always involves both. One who attributes another's truly generous act to a selfish motive does him an injustice. Iniquity, in the original sense, is a want of or a deviation from equity, but it is now applied in the widest sense to any form of ill-doing. Compare synonyms for criminal, sin. Antonyms: equity, fairness, fair play, faithfulness, honesty, honor, impartiality, integrity, justice, lawfulness, rectitude, right, righteousness, uprightness. Innocent. Synonyms: blameless, clean, clear, faultless, guileless, guiltless, harmless, immaculate, innocuous, innoxious, inoffensive, pure, right, righteous, sinless, spotless, stainless, upright, virtuous. Innocent, in the full sense, signifies not tainted with sin, not having done wrong or violated legal or moral precept or duty, as an innocent babe. Innocent is a negative word, expressing less than righteous, upright, or virtuous, which imply knowledge of good and evil, with free choice of the good. A little child or a lamb is innocent. A tried and faithful man is righteous, upright, virtuous. Immaculate, pure, and sinless may be used either of one who has never known the possibility of evil or of one who has perfectly and triumphantly resisted it. Innocent is used of inanimate substances in the sense of harmless, as an innocent remedy, that is, one not dangerous, even if not helpful. Innocent, in a specific case, signifies free from the guilt of a particular act, even though the total character might be very evil, as the thief was found to be innocent of the murder. See candid, pure. Antonyms. Compare synonyms for criminal. Inquisitive. Synonyms: curious, inquiring, intrusive, meddlesome, meddling, peeping, prying, scrutinizing, searching. An inquisitive person is one who is bent on finding out all that can be found out by inquiry, especially of little and personal matters, and hence is generally meddlesome and prying. Inquisitive might be used in a good sense, though in such connection inquiring is to be preferred, as an inquiring mind. As applied to a state of mind, curious denotes a keen and rather pleasurable desire to know fully something to which one's attention may be called, but without the active tendency that inquisitive implies. A well-bred person may be curious to know, but will not be inquisitive in trying to ascertain what is of interest in the affairs of another. Antonyms: apathetic, careless, heedless, inattentive, indifferent, unconcerned, uninterested. Prepositions: inquisitive about, concerning, in regard to, regarding, trifles. Insanity. Synonyms: aberration, alienation, craziness, delirium, dementia, derangement, frenzy, hallucination, lunacy, madness, mania, monomania. Of these terms, insanity is the most exact and comprehensive, including in its widest sense all morbid conditions of mind due to diseased action of the brain or nervous system, but in its more frequent restricted use applied to those forms in which the mental disorder is persistent, as distinguished from those in which it is temporary or transient. Craziness is a vague popular term for any sort of disordered mental action, or for conduct suggesting it. Lunacy, originally denoted intermittent insanity, supposed to be dependent on the changes of the moon, Latin luna. The term is now applied in general and legal use to any form of mental unsoundness except idiocy. Madness is the old popular term now less common for insanity in its widest sense, but with suggestion of excitement, akin to mania. In the derived sense, lunacy denotes what is insanely foolish, madness what is insanely desperate. Derangement is a common euphemism for insanity. Delirium is always temporary and is specifically the insanity of disease, as in acute fevers. Dementia is a general weakening of the mental powers. The word is specifically applied to senile insanity, dotage. Aberration is eccentricity of mental action due to an abnormal state of the perceived faculties, and is manifested by error in perceptions and rambling thought. Hallucination is the apparent perception of that which does not exist or is not present to the senses, as the seeing of specters or of reptiles in delirium tremens. Monomania is mental derangement as to one subject or object. Frenzy and mania are forms of raving and furious insanity. Compare synonyms for delusion, idiocy. Antonyms: clearness, good sense, lucidity, rationality, sanity. Interpose. Synonyms: arbitrate, intercede, intercept, interfere, intermeddle, interrupt, meddle, mediate. To interpose is to place or come between other things or persons, usually as a means of obstruction or prevention of some effect or result that would otherwise occur, or to be expected to take place. Intercede and interpose are used in a good sense, intermeddle always in a bad sense, and interfere frequently so. To intercede is to come between persons who are at variance and plead with the stronger in behalf of the weaker. One may interpose with authority; he intercedes by petition. To intermeddle is to thrust oneself into the concerns of others with a petty officiousness. Meddling commonly arises from idle curiosity. Every fool would be meddling. Proverbs 20:3. To interfere is to intrude into others' affairs with more serious purpose, with or without acknowledged right or propriety. Intercept is applied to an object that might be seized or stopped while in transit, as to intercept a letter or a messenger. Interrupt is applied to an action which might or should be continuous but is broken in upon (Latin rompere, to break) by some disturbing power, as the conversation was interrupted. One who arbitrates or mediates must do so by the request or at least with the consent of the contending parties. The other words of the group imply that he steps in of his own accord. Antonyms: avoid, hold aloof, hold off, keep aloof, keep away, keep clear, keep out, let alone, let be, retire, stand aside, stand away, stand back, stand off, withdraw. Prepositions: interpose between the combatants in the matter. Involve. Synonyms: complicate, embarrass, embroil, entangle, implicate, imply, include, overwhelm. To involve, Latin in, and volvo, roll, is to roll or wind up with or in so as to combine inextricably or inseparably, or nearly so; as the nation is involved in war, the bookkeeper's accounts or the writer's sentences are involved. Involve is a stronger word than implicate, denoting more complete entanglement. As applied to persons, implicate is always used in an unfavorable sense, and involve ordinarily so. But implicate applies only to that which is wrong, while involve is more commonly used of that which is unfortunate. One is implicated in a crime, involved in embarrassments, misfortunes, or perplexities. As regards logical connection, that which is included is usually expressly stated. That which is implied is not stated, but is naturally to be inferred. That which is involved is necessarily to be inferred, as a slate roof is included in the contract. That the roof shall be watertight is implied. The contrary supposition involves an absurdity. See complex. Antonyms: disconnect, disentangle, distinguish, explicate, extricate, remove, separate. End of section 37.
Of English synonyms and antonyms. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. English Synonyms and Antonyms by James Champlin Fernald. Journey, to kill. Journey. Synonyms: excursion, expedition, pilgrimage, tour, transit, travel, trip, voyage. A journey, French journée, from Latin diurnus, daily, was primarily a day's work. Hence, a movement from place to place within one day, which we now describe as a day's journey. In its extended modern use, a journey is a direct going from a starting point to a destination, ordinarily over a considerable distance. We speak of a day's journey, or the journey of life. Travel is a passing from place to place, not necessarily in a direct line or with fixed destination. A journey through Europe would be a passage to some destination beyond or at the farther boundary. Travel in Europe may be in no direct course, but may include many journeys in different directions. A voyage, which was formerly a journey of any kind, is now a going to a considerable distance by water, especially by sea, as a voyage to India. A trip is a short and direct journey. A tour is a journey that returns to the starting point, generally over a considerable distance. as a bridal tour or business tour. An excursion is a brief tour or journey, taken for pleasure, often by many persons at once, as an excursion to Chautauqua. Passage is a general word for a journey by any conveyance, especially by water, as a rough passage across the Atlantic. Transit, literally the act of passing over or through, is used specifically of the conveyance of passengers or merchandise. Rapid transit is demanded for suburban residents or perishable goods. Pilgrimage, once always of a sacred character, retains in derived uses something of that sense, as a pilgrimage to Stratford-on-Avon. Prepositions: a journey from Naples to Rome, through Mexico, across the continent, over the sea. A journey into Asia, among savages, by land, by rail, for health, on foot, on the cars, etc. Judge. Synonyms: arbiter, arbitrator, justice, referee, umpire. A judge, in the legal sense, is a judicial officer appointed or elected to preside in courts of law, and to decide legal questions duly brought before him. The name is sometimes given to other legally constituted officers, as the judges of election. In other relations, any person duly appointed to pass upon the merits of contestants or of competing articles may be called a judge, as the judges at an agricultural fair. Or at a race track, in the widest sense, any person who has good capacity for judging is called a judge, as a person is said to be a judge of pictures, or a good judge of a horse, etc. In most games the judge is called an umpire, as the umpire of a game of ball or cricket. A referee is appointed by a court to decide disputed matters between litigants. An arbitrator is chosen by the contending parties to decide matters in dispute without action by a court. In certain cases an umpire is appointed by a court to decide where arbitrators disagree. Arbiter, with its suggestion of final and absolute decision, has come to be used only in a high or sacred sense, as war must now be the arbiter, the supreme arbiter of our destinies. The judges of certain courts, as the United States Supreme Court, are technically known as justices. Justice. Synonyms: equity, fairness, fair play, faithfulness, honor, impartiality, integrity, justness, law, lawfulness, legality, rectitude, right, righteousness, rightfulness, truth, uprightness, virtue. In its governmental relations, human or divine, justice is the giving to every person exactly what he deserves, not necessarily involving any consideration of what any other may deserve. Equity, the quality of being equal, is giving every one as much advantage, privilege, or consideration as is given to any other. It is that which is equally right or just to all concerned. Equity is equal justice, and is thus a close synonym for fairness and impartiality, but it has a philosophical and legal precision that those words have not. In legal proceedings, cases arise for which the law has not adequately provided, or in which general provisions, just in the main, would work individual hardship. The system of equity, devised to supply the insufficiencies of law, deals with cases to which the law by reason of its universality cannot apply. Equity, then, is the soul and spirit of all law. Positive law is construed and rational law is made by it. Blackstone, Book Third, Chapter 27, page 429. In personal and social relations, justice is the rendering to every one what is due or merited, whether in act, word, or thought. In matters of reasoning or literary work of any kind, justice is close, faithful, unprejudiced, and unbiased adherence to essential truth or fact. We speak of the justice of a statement, or of doing justice to a subject. Integrity, rectitude, right, righteousness, and virtue denote conformity of personal conduct to the moral law, and thus necessarily include justice, which is giving others that which is their due. Lawfulness is an ambiguous word, meaning in its narrower sense mere legality, which may be very far from justice, but in its higher sense signifying accordance with the supreme law of right, and thus including perfect justice. Justness refers rather to logical relations than to practical matters. As we speak of the justness of a statement or of a criticism. See judge, noun. Antonyms: dishonesty, favoritism, iniquity, injustice, partiality, unfairness, unlawfulness, unreasonableness, untruth, wrong. Prepositions: the justice of the king, to or for the oppressed. Keep. Synonyms: carry, carry on, celebrate, conduct, defend, detain, fulfill, guard, hold, maintain, obey, observe, preserve, protect, refrain, restrain, retain, support, sustain, withhold. Keep, signifying generally to have and retain in possession, is the terse, strong Saxon term for many acts which are more exactly discriminated by other words. We keep, observe, or celebrate a festival. We keep or hold a prisoner in custody. We keep or preserve silence. Keep the peace. Preserve order. Preserve being the more formal word. We keep or maintain a horse, a servant, etc. A man supports his family. We keep or obey a commandment. Keep or fulfill a promise. In the expressions to keep a secret, keep one's own counsel, keep faith, or keep the faith, such words as preserve or maintain could not be substituted without loss. A person keeps a shop or store, conducts or carries on a business. He keeps or carries a certain line of goods. We may keep or restrain one from folly, crime, or violence. We keep from or refrain from evil ourselves. Keep in the sense of guard or defend implies that the defense is effectual. Compare celebrate, restrain. Prepositions: keep in hand, in mind, in or within the house, from evil, out of mischief, keep to the subject, keep for a person, an occasion, etc. Kill. Synonyms: assassinate, butcher, dispatch, execute, massacre, murder, put to death, slaughter, slay. To kill is simply to deprive of life, human, animal, or vegetable, with no suggestion of how or why. Assassinate, execute, murder apply only to the taking of human life. To murder is to kill with premeditation and malicious intent. To execute is to kill in fulfillment of a legal sentence. To assassinate is to kill by assault. This word is chiefly applied to the killing of public or eminent persons through alleged political motives, whether secretly or openly. To slay is to kill by a blow or by a weapon. Butcher and slaughter apply primarily to the killing of cattle. Massacre is applied primarily and almost exclusively to human beings, signifying to kill them indiscriminately in large numbers. To massacre is said when there is no chance of successful resistance. To butcher when the killing is especially brutal. Soldiers mown down in a hopeless charge are said to be slaughtered when no brutality on the enemy's part is implied. To dispatch is to kill swiftly, and in general quietly, always with intention, with or without right. Prepositions: to kill with or by sword. Famine, pestilence, care, grief, etc. Killed for his money, by a robber, with a dagger. End of section 38.
Of English Synonyms and Antonyms. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, visit LibriVox.org. English Synonyms and Antonyms by James Champlin Fernald. Language: to light. Language. Synonyms: barbarism, dialect, diction, expression, idiom, mother tongue, patois, speech, tongue, vernacular, vocabulary. Language: French, langage, Latin, lingua, the tongue, signified originally expression of thought by spoken words, but now in its widest sense it signifies expression of thought by any means, as the language of the eyes, the language of flowers. As regards the use of words, language in its broadest sense denotes all the uttered sounds and their combinations into words and sentences that human beings employ for the communication of thought, and in a more limited sense the words or combinations forming a means of communication among the members of a single nation, people, or race. Speech involves always the power of articulate utterance. We can speak of the language of animals, but not of their speech. A tongue is the speech or language of some one people, country, or race. A dialect is a special mode of speaking a language peculiar to some locality or class, not recognized as in accordance with the best usage. A barbarism is a perversion of a language by ignorant foreigners, or some usage akin to that. Idiom refers to the construction of phrases and sentences and the way of forming or using words. It is the peculiar mold in which each language casts its thought. The great difficulty of translation is to give the thought expressed in one language in the idiom of another. A dialect may be used by the highest as well as the lowest within its range. A patois is distinctly illiterate, belonging to the lower classes. Those who speak a patois understand the cultured form of their own language, but speak only the degraded form, as in the case of the Italian Lazzaroni or the former Negro slaves in the United States. Vernacular, from the Latin, has the same general sense as the Saxon mother tongue, of one's native language or that of a people, as the Scriptures were translated into the vernacular. Compare diction. Large, abundant, ample, big, broad, bulky, capacious, coarse, colossal, commodious, considerable, enormous, extensive, gigantic, grand, great, huge, immense, long, massive, spacious, vast, wide. Large denotes extension in more than one direction, and beyond the average of the class to which the object belongs. We speak of a large surface or a large solid, but of a long line, a large field, a large room, a large apple, etc. A large man is a man of more than ordinary size. A great man is a man of remarkable mental power. Big is a more emphatic word than large, but of less dignity. We do not say that George Washington was a big man. Antonyms: brief, diminutive, inconsiderable, infinitesimal, insignificant, limited, little, mean, microscopic, minute, narrow, paltry, petty, scanty, short, slender, slight, small, tiny, trifling, trivial. Law. Synonyms: canon, code, command, commandment, decree, economy, edict, enactment, formula, jurisprudence, legislation, mandate, order, ordinance, polity, principle, regulation, rule, statute. Law, in its ideal, is the statement of a principle of right in mandatory form, by competent authority, with adequate penalty for disobedience. In common use, the term is applied to any legislative act, however imperfect or unjust. Command and commandment are personal and particular, as the commands of a parent, the 10 Commandments. An edict is the act of an absolute sovereign or other authority. We speak of the edict of an emperor, the decree of a court. A mandate is specific for an occasion or a purpose. A superior court issues its mandate to an inferior court to set up its records. Statute is the recognized legal term for a specific law. Enactment is the more vague and general expression. We speak of algebraic or chemical formulas, municipal ordinances, military orders, army regulations, ecclesiastical canons, the rules of a business house. Law is often used also for a recognized principle whose violation is attended with injury or loss that acts like a penalty, as the laws of business, the laws of nature. In more strictly scientific use, a natural law is simply a recognized system of sequences or relations, as Kepler's laws of planetary distances. A code is a system of laws. Jurisprudence is the science of law, or a system of laws scientifically considered, classed, and interpreted. Legislation, primarily the act of legislating, denotes also the body of statutes enacted by a legislative body. An economy, from the Greek oikonomia, primarily the management of a house, is any comprehensive system of administration, as domestic economy, but the word is extended to the administration or government of a state or people, signifying a body of laws and regulations with the entire system, political or religious, especially the latter, of which they form a part, as the Code of Draco, Roman jurisprudence, British legislation, the Mosaic economy. Law is also used as a collective noun for a system of laws or recognized rules or regulations, including not only all special laws, but the principles on which they are based. The Mosaic economy is known also as the Mosaic law, and we speak of the English common law or the law of nations. Polity, Greek politeia, from polis, a city, signifies the form, constitution, or method of government of a nation, state, church, or other institution. In usage it differs from economy, as applying rather to the system, while economy applies especially to method or to the system as administered. An economy might be termed a polity, considered with especial reference to its practical administration, hence commonly with special reference to details or particulars, while polity has more reference to broad principles. Liberty. Synonyms: emancipation, freedom, independence, license. In general terms, it may be said that freedom is absolute, liberty relative. Freedom is the absence of restraint, liberty is primarily the removal or avoidance of restraint. In its broadest sense, it is the state of being exempt from the domination of others, or from restricting circumstances. Freedom and liberty are constantly interchanged. The slave is set at liberty, or gains his freedom, but freedom is the nobler word. Independence is said of states or nations, freedom and liberty of individuals. The independence of the United States did not secure liberty or freedom to its slaves. Liberty keeps quite strictly to the thought of being clear of restraint or compulsion. Freedom takes a wider range, applying to other oppressive influences. Thus we speak of freedom from annoyance or intrusion. License is, in its limited sense, a permission or privilege granted by adequate authority, a bounded liberty. In the wider sense, license is an ignoring and defiance of all that should restrain, and a reckless doing of all that individual caprice or passion may choose to do, a base and dangerous counterfeit of freedom. Compare allow, permission. Antonyms: captivity, compulsion, constraint, imprisonment, necessity, obligation, oppression, serfdom, servitude, slavery, superstition, thraldom. Light. Synonyms: blaze, flame, flare, flash, flicker, glare, gleam, gleaming, glimmer, glistening, glistering, glitter, glow, illumination, incandescence, luster, scintillation, sheen, shimmer, shine, shining, sparkle, twinkle, twinkling. Light, strictly denoting a form of radiant energy, is used as a general term for any luminous effect discernible by the eye, from the faintest phosphorescence to the blaze of the noonday sun. A flame is both hot and luminous. If it contains few solid particles, it will yield little light, though it may afford intense heat, as in the case of a hydrogen flame. A blaze is an extensive, brilliant flame. A flare is a wavering flame or blaze. A flash is a light that appears and disappears in an instant, as a flash of lightning, the flash of gunpowder. The glare and glow are steady, the glare painfully bright, the glow subdued, as the glare of torches, the glow of dying embers. Shine and shining refer to a steady or continuous emission of light. Sheen is a faint shining, usually by reflection. Glimmer, glitter, and shimmer denote wavering light. We speak of the glimmer of distant lamps through the mist, of the shimmer of waves in sunlight or moonlight. A gleam is not wavering, but transient or intermittent. A sudden gleam of light came through the half-opened door. A glitter is a hard light, as the glitter of burnished arms. A sparkle is a sudden light, as of sparks thrown out. Scintillation is the more exact and scientific term for the actual emission of sparks, also the figurative term for what suggests such emission, as scintillations of wit or of genius. Twinkle and twinkling are used of the intermittent light of the fixed stars. Glistening is a shining as from a wet surface. Illumination is a widespread, brilliant light, as when all the windows of a house or of a street are lighted. The light of incandescence is intense and white, like that from metal at a white heat. Antonyms: blackness, dark, darkness, dimness, dusk, gloom, gloominess, obscurity, shade, shadow. End of section 39. Read by DSayers in Modesto, California, for LibriVox.
Of English Synonyms and Antonyms. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recorded by Ken Sterry. English Synonyms and Antonyms by James Champlin Fernald. Likely to love. Likely. Synonyms: apt, conceivable, conjectural, credible, liable, presumable, probable, reasonable. Apt implies a natural fitness or tendency. An impetuous person is apt to speak hastily. Liable refers to a contingency regarded as unfavorable, as the ship was liable to founder at any moment. Likely refers to a contingent event regarded as very probable, and usually, though not always favorable, as an industrious worker is likely to succeed. Credible signifies readily to be believed, as a credible narrative. Likely in such connection is used ironically to signify the reverse, as a likely story. A thing is conceivable, of which the mind can entertain the possibility. A thing is conjectural, which is conjectured as possible or probable, without other support than a conjecture or tentative judgment. A thing is presumable which, from what is antecedently known, may be taken for granted in advance of proof. Reasonable in this connection signifies such as the reason can be satisfied with, independently of external grounds for belief or disbelief, as that seems a reasonable supposition. Compare apparent. Antonyms: doubtful, dubious, improbable, incredible, questionable, unlikely, unreasonable. Listen. Synonyms: attend, hark, hearken, hear, heed, list. Between listen and hear is a difference like that between the words look and see. Compare synonyms for look. To hear is simply to become conscious of sound. To listen is to make a conscious effort or endeavor to hear. We may hear without listening, as words suddenly uttered in an adjoining room, or we may listen without hearing, as to a distant speaker. In listening, the ear is intent upon the sound. In attending, the mind is intent upon the thought, though listening implies some attention to the meaning or import of the sound. To heed is not only to attend, but to remember and observe. Hearken is nearly obsolete. Antonyms: be deaf to, ignore, neglect, scorn, slight. Prepositions: we listen for what we expect or desire to hear. We listen to what we actually do hear. Listen for a step, a signal, a train. Listen to the debate. Literature. Synonyms: bellettre, books, literary productions, literary works, publications, writings. Literature is collective, including in the most general sense all the written or printed productions of the human mind in all lands and ages, or in a more limited sense, referring to all that has been published in some land or age, or in some department of human knowledge, as the literature of Greece, the literature of the Augustan age, the literature of politics or of art. Literature, used absolutely, denotes what has been called polite literature or bellettre, i.e., the works collectively that embody taste, feeling, loftiness of thought, and purity and beauty of style, as poetry, history, fiction, and dramatic compositions, including also much of philosophical writing, as the Republic of Plato, and oratorical productions, as the orations of Demosthenes. In the broad sense, we can speak of the literature of science. In the narrower sense, we speak of literature and science as distinct departments of knowledge. Literature is also used to signify literary pursuits or occupations, as to devote one's life to literature. Compare knowledge, science. Load, noun. Synonyms: burden, cargo, charge, clog, encumbrance, freight, incubus, lading, pack, weight. A burden, from the Anglo-Saxon burthen, from the verb beran, bear, is what one has to bear, and the word is always used of that which is borne by a living agent. A load, from the Anglo-Saxon laud, a way, course, carrying, or carriage, is what is laid upon a person, animal, or vehicle for conveyance, or what is customarily so imposed, as a 2-horse load. Weight measures the pressure due to gravity. the same weight that one finds a moderate load when in his full strength becomes a heavy burden in weariness or weakness. A ship's load is called distinctively a cargo, or it may be known as a freight or lading. Freight denotes merchandise in or for transportation, and is used largely of transportation or of merchandise transported by rail, which is, in commercial language, said to be shipped. A load to be fastened upon a horse or mule is called a pack, and the animal is known as a pack horse or a pack mule. Lock. Synonyms: bar, bolt, catch, clasp, fastening, hasp, hook, latch. A bar is a piece of wood or metal, usually of considerable size, by which an opening is obstructed, a door held fast, etc. A bar may be movable or permanent. A bolt is a movable rod or pin of metal, sliding in a socket and adapted for securing a door or window. A lock is an arrangement by which an enclosed bolt is shot forward or backward by a key or other device. The bolt is the essential part of the lock. A latch or catch is an accessible fastening designed to be easily movable and simply to secure against accidental opening of the door, cover, etc. A hasp is a metallic strap that fits over a staple, calculated to be secured by a padlock. A simple hook that fits into a staple is also called a hasp. A clasp is a fastening that can be sprung into place to draw and hold the parts of some enclosing object firmly together, as the clasp of a book. Look. Synonyms: behold, contemplate, descry, discern, gaze, glance, inspect, regard, scan, see, stare, survey, view, watch. To see is simply to become conscious of an object of vision. To look is to make a conscious and direct endeavor to see. To behold is to fix the sight and the mind with distinctness and consideration upon something that has come to be clearly before the eyes. We may look without seeing, as in pitch darkness, and we may see without looking, as in a case of a flash of lightning. To gaze is to look intently, long, and steadily upon an object. To glance is to look casually or momentarily. To stare is to look with a fixed intensity, such as is the effect of surprise, alarm, or rudeness. To scan is to look at minutely, to note every visible feature. To inspect is to go below the surface, uncover, study item by item. View and survey are comprehensive, survey expressing the greater exactness of measure or estimate. Watch brings in the element of time and often of wariness. We watch for a movement or change, a signal, the approach of an enemy, etc. Compare APPEAR. Love. Synonyms: affection, attachment, attraction, charity, devotion, fondness, friendship, liking, regard, tenderness. Affection is kindly feeling, deep, tender, and constant, going out to some person or object, being less fervent and ardent than love, whether applied to persons or things. Love is an intense and absorbing emotion, drawing one toward a person or object, and causing one to appreciate, delight in, and crave the presence or possession of the person or object loved, and to desire to please and benefit the person, or to advance the cause, truth, or other object of affection. It is the yearning or outgoing of soul towards something that is regarded as excellent, beautiful, or desirable. Love may be briefly defined as strong and absorbing affection for and attraction toward a person or object. Love may denote the sublimest and holiest spiritual affection, as when we are taught that God is love. Charity has so far swung aside from this original meaning that probably it can never be recalled. Compare benevolence. The Revised Version uses love in place of charity in the first book of Corinthians, chapter 13, and elsewhere. Love is more intense, absorbing, and tender than friendship, more intense, impulsive, and perhaps passionate than affection. We speak of fervent love, but of deep or tender affection, or of close, firm, strong friendship. Love is used specifically for personal affection between the sexes in the highest sense, the love that normally leads to marriage and subsists throughout all happy wedded life. Love can never properly denote mere animal passion, which is expressed by such words as appetite, desire, lust. One may properly be said to have love for animals, for inanimate objects, or for abstract qualities that enlist the affections, as we speak of love for a horse or a dog, for mountains, woods, ocean, or of love of nature, and love of virtue. Love of articles of food is better expressed by liking, as love, in its full sense, expresses something spiritual and reciprocal, such as can have no place in connection with objects that minister merely to the senses. Compare attachment, friendships. Antonyms. See synonyms for antipathy, enmity, hatred. Prepositions: love of country, for humanity, love to God and man. End of section 40. Recorded by Ken Sterry.